Which mean Pittsburgh is still uncertain about who is going to play under center. It's all too much for Booger McFarland. Let's bring in our Steelers reporter, Brooke Pryor, who's going to join the conversation here. And as we continue to wait for a decision from Aaron Rodgers, what is the sense around the league, Brooke? What can you tell us about why this long wait time? What does that mean for Aaron Rodgers and his future?
Well, Shay, the Steelers are between a Rodgers and a hard place here, waiting on Aaron Rodgers to make a decision. And some people I've talked to around the league, especially as they watch some of the Steelers' other quarterback options disappear and Rodgers' potential landing spots disappear. Some people think that the longer Rodgers takes to make a decision to commit to the Steelers, the more likely it is that he is not playing for the Steelers in 2025, that perhaps he could go into retirement. Maybe he waits to see if the Vikings end up changing their mind, because the Vikings GM actually said just a few minutes ago that he's not 100% closing the door on Aaron Rodgers. Perhaps it's worth noting that Brett Favre waited until August to sign with the Vikings way back when. So if Rodgers doesn't come to this neighborhood, the Steelers are going to have to pivot. They could look at perhaps a Joe Flacco or Carson Wentz, or they could go to the draft this year, or they collect some of these compensatory picks from losing some free agents, put that together, package it, and be able to move up in the 2026 draft class, where they could land a quarterback in a more quarterback-rich draft class.
I mean, it does feel like Aaron Rodgers needs to or should make a decision before the draft, right? Because that will affect these teams directly. Booger, I'm going to ask you now, if the Steelers do not wind up with Aaron Rodgers, what direction should they go with for quarterback next season?
Well, the Steelers are in a tough spot. They need a long-term answer at the quarterback position, but where they've been picking, it's kind of tough to get one. Go back to the Kenny Pickett year. They took Kenny Pickett in the first round, and we saw how that turned out. At some point, they're going to have to try to move up in the draft, come back up in the first round, or package some picks and get up and try to take a chance on some of these quarterbacks, because Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson are not the answer. And if you're going to get your Ben Roethlisberger, you're going to have to get higher in the draft or hit on one of these second-round picks. Either way, I think if you're Pittsburgh and Aaron Rodgers decides not to come to Pittsburgh, now the Pittsburgh Steelers are in a really, really tough spot.
Yeah, no kidding. We'll see what happens. The Steelers have the 21st pick in the draft. Maybe a quarterback will be in the cards then. I don't know. Brooke, we appreciate you. Booger, thank you.
It's agreed to a one-year, $21 million deal. What does that mean for Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, who are still waiting for a decision? We have Steelers reporter Brooke Pryor, Giants reporter Jordan Renan, and our own Booger McFarland to break it all down, but we begin in New York. Jordan, what can you tell us about the signing of Russell Wilson and how it impacts their plans for the third pick in the NFL draft?
Yeah, well, what the signing of Russell Wilson doesn't do is take the Giants out of the quarterback picture when it comes to the draft. You're talking about a team here, and John Mara, the team owner, said after this past season, their number one priority, their number one issue was finding a quarterback for the future. Russell Wilson's 37 years old. Jameis Winston hasn't been a starter in 5 years. The Giants will draft a quarterback. It may not necessarily be with the number 3 overall pick. They now have some flexibility, where at least they can get by if they don't have a quarterback from the draft for this season. It could be sort of a long-term project, someone they want to build up over several years. But when you do talk about the number 3 overall pick, the name that comes into consideration is always Shedeur Sanders. That's the likely option at that pick. And when you talk to people around the league and with the Giants, there seems to be a mixed opinion on him. There's some people I know within the organization that like him, and there's some people apparently that aren't enamored with him. And when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, it's not all the stuff you hear, the way he comports himself, his attitude and stuff. For me, when I talk to people around the league, it's whether they see him as a surefire, high-end starter in the NFL, given his traits and skills. Does he have that ability for you as an evaluator to dream of him being a top 5, top 7, top 10 type quarterback? So that seems to be the dilemma here with Shedeur Sanders, and something the Giants are going to have to consider moving forward. If not, maybe they move back into the bottom end of the first round. Maybe they draft a quarterback early in round 2. Maybe they just select a quarterback at some point in day 2 overall. So the Giants, though, they will draft a quarterback in this year's draft because they don't have that long-term answer yet.
Man, prime time in New York seems like the perfect marriage for someone who's been in the spotlight ever since he was a kid. So, Booger, in your eyes, should the Giants take Shedeur Sanders with the 3rd pick or just take the best player available?
Well, if they're looking for a franchise quarterback where they're picking, he's probably going to be the only option available. You can always say trade back into the 1st round, but let's face it, this is not a banner year for quarterbacks. And if you're the Giants, and as Jordan stated, ownership has come out and said, our entire goal this offseason is to get a franchise quarterback. By all accounts, there are only a couple of guys up on that level when you start to talk about Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, maybe Jackson Dart, Tyler Shuck. Now we're starting to get down to some of the lower tier guys. So if you got an opportunity to get a guy that's pretty accurate with the football, that's patient, that makes really good decisions like Shedeur Sanders, I think if you're the Giants, you gotta take the chance and draft him. And let's face it, there are no sure things in the draft. Everybody says Cam Ward's going to 1st pick. He could flame out. We really don't know. That's why you use your scouting, you draft a guy, and then you got to coach him up and see how he plays.
Yeah, that is so true. Nothing is guaranteed in this world. And just so everyone knows, the Giants have never drafted a quarterback with a top 3 pick. So we'll see.
Giants put out on the field last year at the quarterback position after they sat Daniel Jones. Tim Boyle was out there. Drew Lock was out there. Tommy DeVito. You now have multiple quarterbacks in that room that if you need them to take snaps, they're competent enough to run this offense, and you can evaluate everybody on that side of the ball.
J-Mac, not to steal a line from Doggy, but take it easy. Take it easy. Okay, here's the deal, bro. Let's pump the brakes when we're talking about how New Yorkers should be excited. Russell Wilson, I respect the man. He's a champion. The only thing that I've ever had against him is what he took to Denver, because the only thing he brought to Denver that anybody applauded was Sierra. Outside of that, there was nothing that he did. His play wasn't up to snuff, and I think in light of that, you speak against Russell Wilson. But that's it. Outside of that, let's call it what it is. The last 5 starts of last regular season, he lost, plus a playoff game. You got a quarterback coming to town. That's last time we saw him, he's lost 6 straight. He didn't win the last 2 months of the NFL season. He didn't throw. I mean, he's averaging less than 200 yards passing for those last 6 games. When you look at what he's done, they couldn't even score more than 14.5 points a game. Okay, they never scored more than 17. So when you say they should be happy about it, all I'm saying is pump the brakes on that a little bit. I mean, the latest thing that we've seen from Russell Wilson is nothing to write home about.
That's fair, but at least I feel like the Giants are taking this seriously now, because when they got rid of Saquon, we were like, what's about to happen? When you're going after Russ, you're going after Aaron Rodgers, at least we feel like they're taking the position seriously.
Yeah, at this point, I will, however, say Giants fans, they kind of got mixed emotions on this. But they will be happy that Sierra is coming to New York as well, because, you know, Denver was happy about Sierra coming there. I know they're happy about her.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Ngày hôm nay mình sẽ tiếp tục hướng dẫn các bạn làm vòng tô tượng. Tượng hôm nay của mình sẽ có tiêu đề là con gấu. Bây giờ mình bắt đầu tô nhá. Mọi người, hôm nay tượng của mình sẽ có tiêu đề là khủng long. Bây giờ mình bắt đầu làm nha. Tô phần kính khủng long màu xanh nhá. Đây, mắt màu xanh này, mắt màu xanh nhé. Tiếp đến sẽ là màu đỏ.